Testing.
In terms of public comments, there are usually two sections for people to make comments to the board. It usually is not engaged back and forth. This evening is probably going to be different. When we get to the transportation section, which I imagine most of you are here for, I believe the board would be open to having a full conversation with the people here and answering questions. So, to start with, we do start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there a flag in here? There's not. We can use that, all right. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so the first thing on the agenda are the minutes of June 17th, 2019. What is the wish of the board?
Move them as written.
Need a second.
Oh, second.
Are there any changes, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Immediate business, JICK, Student Safety and Violence Prevention Policy Discussion. This was on the agenda from previous meetings where we had talked about readdressing the student safety and violence policy and seeing if there were any changes, particularly to the bullying section that wanted to be suggested or talked about.
There was a suggestion from a parent that we should look at this policy again. It had been a year, and she made a couple of suggestions that I have written down. I'm not sure, I don't think she's here tonight. But we agreed that it would be a good idea to open it up to the community so that they could comment on the policy, and if they had ideas and suggestions of things we might want to incorporate, that we would be open to hearing them.
So, hearing that, I know you guys are mostly here for transportation, but if there are any comments that anyone would like to add for our current student safety and violence prevention policy, we are happy to hear and engage on a conversation. Yes.
So, Brenda Cameron, this is regarding student safety, but it's not about bullying.
Okay.
It's just a reminder that the governor will be voting on House Bill 564, so probably sometime this week, which would enable schools to have the gun-free school zones.
Okay.
Also, it would give schools the option of having staff assigned to have weapons in school should they so desire. And that would be following a public hearing. So they could get the feedback from the community to see how the community feels about having guns in the school. But otherwise, the gun-free school zone would pertain to the state. So now is the time to get in touch with the governor's office if you feel pro or con against this policy.
Could we just clarify something?
Sure.
Because currently, anyone can carry a gun onto the school campus.
Correct, as long as they have legally obtained a gun. They can open carry it or conceal carry. Anyone from the public is allowed in the school with a gun.
All right. So thank you for the comment. It's probably more apropos to our public comments, but it does definitely touch on student safety and violence prevention. Are there any additional comments anybody wants to make on this, or should we maybe table this to our next meeting and really publish it and encourage people to come and talk about it?
I think, go ahead.
Sure.
I'm Holly Boyson. How long until you're planning on publishing this policy?
This policy is active right now. Okay. We're open to changes is what we were bringing it back. So the way the board works is we continually review and update policies. There's hundreds of policies. There are hundreds of policies, and some of them are static because they don't need to be updated. But things like this, it's constantly changing dynamic. You have to bring them back and address changes in the community on a regular basis.
And we typically will review a policy in 3 or so meetings before we actually put it back in place.
Right.
So it kind of goes up for discussion, we talk about it 3 times. Usually on the 3rd time is when we move it and reenact it as to what changed or left alone.
Okay, so the changes that you were referencing earlier,
There was one particular parent who had suggested a number of changes. I don't have a copy of what her changes are.
okay,
She's not here tonight, so we're probably going to table this and encourage her to come to the next meeting
okay.
and talk to what she would like to see added, and encourage anybody else who wants to come and talk about it. Is everybody on the board okay tabling this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the next thing are public comments. This is the section where if you have something you would like to say to the board, you're welcome to say it. If it's transportation, I'm going to open the floor so you can have a conversation with us, but if you have something else you would like to talk to us about, this would be the time. All right. Agenda review. Is there anything we would like to change on this agenda?
I have your retainage amount with me if you're interested in taking action on that tonight, or you can have a conversation and we can vote on it when the entire board is here. And we also need to, you signed a form for Pete LeMay to be the deputy treasurer, so that he's Judy's backup if she's not here, but I neglected to get a formal motion, so we need to do that tonight.
Okay, so that would be under continuing business, I would imagine.
Sure.
So we can put deputy treasurer under continuing business, and are you guys okay talking about the retainage tonight?
I would rather have a better idea of what we have for a fund balance,
Okay,
personally.
I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
all right,
That's just me. I'm not.
okay. Is anybody else want to talk about the retainage from last year tonight, or is everybody okay waiting until the next meeting? Okay. We'll wait until the next meeting. Transportation. That's why everybody's here. So I wanted to start this and kind of describe how we're going to run it. We're going to start with a little bit of a history of busing in Deerfield and how we've gotten to where we are now and what the challenge is in front of us. And then I'm going to open the floor to questions. And I ask if you please raise your hand. I don't mind if you ask multiple questions, but at least identify yourself the first time, and so that we can take notes. There was a lot of interest on Facebook from our posting. I hope more people show up so that we can have a more robust conversation. However, I will start with saying that Dale Transportation has provided busing for the Deerfield Community School and for SAU 53 for more than 15, 20 years. Long time. The way we operate in terms of contracting busing is that the school, either independently as a school district, puts out an RFP to contract busing, and we ask for anyone who's interested in bidding on it to come and bid for us, or we collaborate with the rest of the SAU and put out one big RFP asking for, basically making it more appealing to companies to provide busing for a larger area. In the past, I think Deerfield has gone both ways. The most recent way we went as part of the entire SAU, and that was in 2016. When we did do that, the SAU actively reached out to multiple different vendors, including Dale, who is our current vendor, asking them to bid so that we would have some competitive analysis to look at busing. We had one response. Dale was the only company who responded to the bid, and has been the only company that has responded to our bids for busing for multiple years. This last round wasn't the first time they were the only ones who responded. We contracted a 5-year contract with Dale. We are in year 3 of that, I believe, going into year 3.
Yes.
And part of that contract is there is a performance bond attached to it. There is an opt-out clause for this community if we were interested in doing so. The challenge is that there is a bus shortage across the whole country. And we have gotten into a situation where we're kind of in a pinch. We heard last week that we are at least 3 buses down, and we are obligated legally to provide bus transportation for K through 8. The state law says that everyone K through 8 must have transportation if they are more than a mile, or is it 2 miles? Maybe 2 miles. It's 2 miles from the school. This board doesn't want to cut any buses. We don't want this to happen at all. This is a community challenge. We're all up against this. I have kids. Zach has kids. Ken has kids. This is not something any of us are particularly interested in seeing happen. And I know that Kelly from Dale, who's here, is not keen on being in this situation either. However, we are. And we're about 3 weeks away from school starting. So, Kelly, if you could kind of give us an update, because this changes on a day-to-day basis. Okay, where are we at?
Currently, I have 2 drivers that will come in and take over 2 of those 3 routes. One is available to us until November when she goes to Florida for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is someone who actually lives in town, he's switching towns to help us out. There's a hole over there, but it will help bigger here. He's willing to do that for us. We're currently looking for a 3rd person who can help with that. As you know, when we spoke, the 3 drivers that have left all had life-changing decisions, basically. One chose to go back to school. One was moving to Florida with their family. And the other one, her kids have all grown up and moved out of the system, and she's pursuing other things. Once your kids grow up, you want to do something else. So you can't fault any of them for that.
Right.
It wasn't a pay issue, it was life decisions for them. One of our high school drivers has found that at this point in her life, she can't do both AM and PM, but she's willing to do the AM high school run. And then we have the other one, full-time high school driver. The other route was open all last year, but we were able to fill it in and we went along.
But are you able to do that this year? So to kind of summarize, we have 2 tentative coming back
I
to
have 2 signed on to come on.
for DCS.
DCS.
So we're down 1 bus now.
Correct.
But we are also short in high school.
Right.
How short are we in high school?
We have 1.5 drivers.
For 3 buses.
One of the drivers that was leaving, his family changed their mind and they're staying. I've reached out to her and asked her,
Right.
told her of our need for all of us, for us as Dale and for Deerfield as well.
Right.
Really help us out if she would consider coming back. She's back. There's a lot of,
Moving
those are people, so.
I think collectively, just so everybody understands, what we typically have is so historically for the last number of years, we've had 7 elementary school buses that, obviously in the AM, we send 3 buses to the high school in the morning as well. In the afternoon, we have 2 buses that go to the high school, and we keep one of the high school buses in town. It makes a run to the George B. White building to supply or bring kids over to the town Parks and Rec after school program. So in the
Makes 2
afternoon,
runs, actually.
makes a number of runs, but it becomes a transfer shuttle basically to bring kids to the Parks and Rec program, and then our 7 buses typically would run their regular route. That 8th bus that we retain historically would then go and pick up meet the high school, one of the high school buses as it enters town, pick up its route of kids that it would have had, say, in the morning, and then they split off in separate directions. So that is just to give everybody an idea of how we typically organize our 10 buses, which is what we historically have had.
So as of right now, we're pretty drastically short at the high school, and the elementary school has gotten better.
Right. And we could use the 2 drivers that we do have signed on to help us with the 2 full routes, like the orange and white that you can't do anything with. We could split up the purple route between red and pink we have to get everybody picked up and get them to school.
So right now, if we look at, we have 2 AM buses for the high school. We have 1 PM bus. Okay. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around what we have. So, and then for the elementary school, at the moment, we have 6
6 out of 7.
6 out of 7, and those are 6 that are ready to go in 3 weeks. Okay.
So I know that there were quite a few comments on Facebook, and I did want to bring some numbers along from last year, just to get a sense. So we have about 170 kids up at high school, and I know there are high school parents in the audience, including me. The numbers of kids that actually ride the bus is far smaller than that, just because as they get to junior and senior years, they tend to drive themselves and they pick up friends, and it's kind of constantly moving and fluid, and there are after-school activities. So the ridership is not 170 kids to the high school. Let me just pull some numbers here. That's elementary. All right, so I'll have to pull that. Are there questions at this point? Have we been pretty clear? Are there folks who have any questions that they would like to? Sure.
Lorenzo Palacios, go by Lori. I just had a question about the bidding. Is there a reason why we can't get any other bids besides Dell? Is there like a shortage of companies or?
Well, there's a lot of conglomeration. Dale is not Dale anymore. Dale is owned by STA, which is Student Transportation of America, and it is an enormous corporation. The other one is First Student. You've probably seen their buses driving around and stuff. So there are 2 or 3 huge conglomerations that have bought a lot of the small shops like Dale. And
It's kind of like the cable company.
they don't seem to bid in each other's territory.
Like the cable company.
It just, I would love to see competitive bids, but we are in a situation where it's literally, we've had one bidder for a decade.
So they just don't want to make another bid for a competition, but it's not because they don't want to come to Deerfield.
I can't speak to their, we're not, I don't think we're a high value community to a busing company. We have an enormous amount of roads and a relatively small number of kids. So I don't know, I can't speak to their economic incentives, but Kelly?
Hi Jim, Kelly Quayle. Is it possible to subcontract somewhere else at this point? Have we looked at subcontracting out of the area? And what does that look like, at least temporarily, until we can get the problem solved?
Right, so Dale will give us back money on the buses that they don't provide. We also have a performance bond, so we have actually reached out to, I've had a number of conversations with Concord, asking them if there was the possibility that there was some sort of an arrangement, because they own their own buses. They are talking with me, but under no circumstances have made any kind of commitment. They're down six drivers themselves. Now, 6 drivers for them out of 26 routes or something is not as drastic as us being down 3 out of 7.
Okay.
Well, for the elementary school. Yeah. So that might happen, and just trying to have creative conversations, like, can you maybe do a lake bus?
Have you contacted Durham?
I have not contacted Durham.
And the only reason I bring it up is because Connor, he went to summer school.
Yep.
And it was really weird because this bus driver called and said, hey, I'm from Durham. And I said, well, my son goes to Concord. I don't want to, no. We subcontract and Concord hired us and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So Durham was running the route all summer for Deerfield. Now, there weren't as many children, obviously, for the summer program.
Was that a full-size bus?
She had a large van.
Yeah. So
So I don't know
It's
what
a
else
different
they had.
contract.
there are,
A different contract.
yeah, there are different contracts. So there are special ed contracts, and then there are regular contracts, and there are different buses and different companies that kind of focus in each niche. And I think Durham kind of focuses in that niche
Okay.
a lot.
Almost fed.
Yeah.
Smaller.
Another just, there's a couple of laws in the state of New Hampshire, well, one of them is very specific about how students are transported. So I mean, as much as you'd say, okay, well, a bus is a bus and let's just get a bus, students have to be transported on a school bus. That is it. That is our choice. That is our option. We cannot hire a van. We cannot hire a tour coach to come pick them up and move them from point A to point B. In New Hampshire, the laws say students are transported on a school bus.
And the laws actually go beyond that, where the school cannot even facilitate carpooling. Anything that deals with student transportation that touches the school has to be on a school bus. If there's any kind of carpooling arrangement that's made, it has to be entirely independent of either the SAU or the school. So if perchance a bunch of parents decided to do something separate from the school, which it would have to be entirely separate from the school. And that law went into effect 3 or 4 years ago. And I don't know if you all remember, like there were, used to be able to drive kids on field trips after school and stuff, and that eliminated that. So it's too onerous in my opinion. Yes?
What about, the kids coming in earlier, before the 7:50? I know my kids are really particular, they like to get here early, so my husband leaves the house early, so he's in like the first of the line and not at the end of the line.
Right.
And, they, at like 10 minutes up, they really don't even have enough time to get into the classroom.
So we would need to talk to either the paras or the teachers or the administrators about that. And this is literally the first meeting that this board has had since we heard about this. So we're going to have the discussion right now about that. In terms of moving that line faster, I had a conversation with the police chief about having an officer stand there and stop traffic because half of the backup is not being able to turn left or right. He said that he couldn't do it because he literally has one officer on duty and that officer can't be out of the car in case there's an emergency. But he said he didn't care if we did it. So we have put an email out saying, is there anybody who's interested in being a traffic guard? And being a traffic guard is not just like do it yourself, but there's actually a certification. So hopefully it'd be nice if somebody did that, because this board has not voted on this. I kind of went out in left field on it, but I would imagine the board would support a traffic director.
Can I ask a question about
Sure.
that? Is it a crossing guard or traffic control?
Traffic control.
Okay, I thought it
Not a
had to be a
crossing
police officer, but.
According to the chief, it doesn't.
I guess it's his town, so.
Yeah.
He says it's okay.
He's the guy who's,
Pembroke told me I couldn't do it.
With school starting earlier now, with the new teacher contract and so with the new hours and going later, it wouldn't still be a 7:50 drop off anyways, wouldn't it?
no, it's always 10 minutes before.
So it'd be 7:40 currently.
So,
Okay, so we need to come up with.
how's the administration feel about 7:20?
We can put it on the table, but I don't,
Right.
I mean, something you'd have to mull around.
Right.
We'd have to see if we could get staff here, and we'd have to pay them.
Right. And I think that we would be able to offset the payment of that from the money we would be getting back from Dale. The reality is that just putting this message out, when we found out last week, and we put the message out because we were encouraged to by Dale, that if this was real, and it does change every day, but I think we will have more people driving regardless of whether or not we wind up with all our buses again. So facilitating the drop-off is definitely something that we are looking at.
You're in the 7:20 arrival, you're looking for parent drop-off or bus drop-off?
Parent drop-off.
Parent.
So we can clear that line quicker.
Or clear more through the line.
Is that logistically
What
possible?
what would that do for missing bus drivers? How does that help that situation?
You're gonna have more parents driving, and if there's a wider window to drop off, it might encourage more parents to drive,
Or
which means
enable
that
more parents to
the
drive.
routes would go a little bit faster, which means kids, when we expand the routes, won't be on the bus for an hour and a half.
I was thinking if it was a bus that came in and dropped off early and then went out and did another route.
That's, I guess,
That's something else we could do.
This is something you'd have to do in a close area, but you
Well, yeah, if we clear that line quicker, the buses can get in quicker.
I think a lot of parents too, I mean, I have to go in earlier, but I know my husband has to be at work by 8. So he would drop the kids off, you know, I know he wouldn't probably, even though the kids like to take the bus or whatever, he would drop them off in the morning if he could get through faster that way too. And I think a lot of parents go to work at 8.
Yeah.
I think that would be helpful, as far as freeing up people on the bus.
Yeah, so something that we asked, we had a board meeting on Monday that was entirely focused on goals. Something that we did mention there was possibly sending a Google form out to parents and just saying, are you willing to drive? And we obviously have to offer transportation, it's legal obligation, but do you ever get on the bus? Because there are a lot of parents that never get on the bus, or kids that never get on the bus. And if we can account for that and still have room for them in the odd instance where they actually need transportation, it will help us arrange routes more effectively. So I'm hoping that we can get something like that out, I know, hopefully soon.
Can I'm sorry, I'm just trying to gather thoughts here.
Sure.
Kelly, on our routes, again, I always know where Blue goes because it's past my house. But can you help me visualize where the rest of the routes go?
Yes, so Bus does Coffeetown and Cape and Nottingham,
Coffee,
Mountain Road,
Kate, and Nottingham, okay,
and Parade.
all right.
I have a map of this I can show for you.
Oh, you do?
Not in front of me, but I will get.
Do you? Yeah, I'm just trying to, can you, if we could, that'd be great.
Want to know?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna try to spitball ideas or thoughts, Jim, what do you?
I don't think we're coming out of this with a solution tonight, but I think we were gonna come out of this with ideas. And then we were gonna have another meeting to formalize this, is the way I see this happening.
So,
Because it's constantly changing.
That's what I'm thinking about this 7:20 early arrival. Is it gonna become a practice, or is it just a temporary solution?
Right.
Because I'm not sure that that's what we're looking for, this to be a practice here at this school.
Just have some sort of early.
Before school
Yeah,
cafeteria madness or whatever.
right.
Um,
And it, yeah, so,
Right, but if we have to do it, we have to do it.
right.
The other thing that I heard is that you have somebody who is going to come back and drive for you to November. You're gonna have to have somebody in November to take that spot.
do you?
I don't right now, but it gives us time.
Breathing room. How long does it take for you, is it 3 months
It's
from
about 3 months.
hire to actually having the driver?
There's a lot involved with background checks and all the tests they have to pass, skills-wise, knowledge.
And if somebody came to you that, say, had a CDL and a passenger endorsement, is it still 3 months, or does it take?
They still have to go through our entire training program, they still have to take a driving test on a school bus, because that's how you get a license on a school bus.
Okay, so you're still a couple of months to make that, okay.
I don't know if everybody heard that, but it takes 3 full months to train to be a bus driver.
And is it still every district has their own training? That you can't train in one district and then?
We have a trainer on site, we actually have 3 that train our drivers. We have our own program in-house, which most companies do.
Right, but let's say if I drive in Keene and then I move to Deerfield and then I want to drive here, but I've been trained by another company in Keene, do I still go through your training?
You go through our program, but if you're fully licensed, it doesn't take as long. You're still required to do 10 hours of classroom and 4 hours of driving, and then we submit your name on a roster to the state of New Hampshire Department of Transportation. They do their checks, and you get cleared on the roster. Since you have all your credentials, you can start driving. Our company as a whole, SDA, when we roster somebody, we roster them in every district we cover in New Hampshire, so they can drive anywhere. So if there was somebody who drive in a different town, we would have them.
Okay.
There's pretty much everyone is in this boat, and like you said, first student, but
Right.
we're all trying to harvest the people we have and put them into the best work, we can do. They've even looked at out-of-state drivers from our company as far as ways Connecticut. They have to also do the training and then take the test to get the New Hampshire school bus endorsement.
Okay.
And
So
then-
it's not interchangeable between states.
Not between states, because every state is a little bit different as far as their school bus goes. New Hampshire's the toughest one around.
Okay. Savannah?
Hi, Savannah Logan. Is it, two questions, is it required that Concord High students have transportation to school?
No.
Okay, my other question is because we are only short one bus in Deerfield, and it's a lot closer for people to get here than it is to Concord, is there the option to use one of those buses for Concord High, and could they go there and come back and still make a trip for the school?
It would be a very early trip up to Concord. It would be in like an
5:30.
extra, yeah, in the 5 o'clock range, because it's a 40-minute ride back, 40-minute ride back.
Could we use one of the bus drivers that would be assigned here towards that though instead?
We legally have to provide K through 8 transportation.
But if enough people drive to school though, if the numbers are small enough, will one of those buses complement and use the complement?
It's all fluid. I mean, it would, so even if people commit to driving, like I'm gonna drop off my kids, we still legally have to have the capacity to take their kid home on the off chance that I can't make it to pick up my kid, or I can't drop them off this morning, so I'm gonna throw them on the bus. We can figure that that's not gonna happen on a regular basis, but we have to have enough close to enough capacity to cover every kid in this building by law.
Yeah, last year we did a little exercise when we were determining if we needed to add an 8th bus for the school year. So our 7 buses have a maximum capacity, this is 3 to a seat, of 77 per child. So that's 539 kids, which is basically what we have for a student population. So in theory, we have a seat for every child in the elementary school, if they all got onto a bus at once. That being said, when we looked at everything, we see that it's about a 66% usage. So, which puts us at 2 to a seat, which is a more comfortable, and again, not every bus is seeing the same usage number. Certain buses are packed pretty heavy and other buses are packed pretty light, but unfortunately this town is huge geographically, and so even when you try to look at routes and say, can we take 2 lesser utilized buses and try to find a way to optimize their routing, it turns into a very long route. If you try to take the bus that's up on Griffin Road and then send it over to Coffeetown Road and loop it back to the quieter corners of town, you'd have a 2-hour bus ride for a handful of kids every day. So I mean, these are all these things that we're looking at. We're always trying. Every year we review this stuff. It's just more information.
So in terms of the high school, I am having conversations with the director of transportation up there, and they may have room for a late bus out of Concord. So we have 1 bus coming back right now in the afternoon, according to Kelly, right? Concord may have room for late buses. So not an ideal situation, but
It's a request we've gotten over the years too.
it's one of those things that might be a possibility. And we're putting everything on the table because nothing is a great possibility. The great possibility is that we have all our buses. So, Kelly,
So what do you mean by late bus?
it's like a 5 o'clock bus back.
Okay, so basically right now, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, you have 2 drivers for the morning, but only 1 driver for the afternoon for high school, correct? So why couldn't a Deerfield driver go get the kids in the afternoon?
After they dropped off kids here?
Or maybe the after-school bus or something, or double up one of the buses in Deerfield?
We were already doing that.
I mean,
So we were already taking one of the buses here and meeting the high school. They were
I
coming
know,
back
because the transfer is on that major road, which is not safe.
on Middle Road.
So.
Right.
So we can't do that now. That's off the table completely.
We have 1 bus coming back right now.
We used to have 2 buses coming
I
back.
understand
And
that.
then split into 3. So right now, no, we
You can't
can't.
count on other siblings driving other kids.
No, we can't.
I mean, I've got 3 that none of them are gonna be driving for a year, they're all gonna need busing.
Isn't there a ratio of how much kids they can take in a car to school when you're like a certain age? If you're 17, you can only take like your sister or brother, and then like, right?
But I mean, not all families have extra cars for people to drive either, so.
No, I totally
You know, so
understand.
we're gonna be relying on busing, so I mean, we can't go with one bus on the way home from Concord, we just can't, you can't fit that many kids on the bus.
I
I mean,
mean,
you say there's 170, hypothetically, they have sports, but even half of that, I mean, that's a tight squeeze for a bunch of big kids on a high school bus.
if
I mean,
we,
it's gotta come somewhere, we gotta be able to get either from Concord, they've got to be able to, you can pay them.
I hope that it does.
Maybe a Deerfield bus is gonna have to pick up the slack for just the afternoon. It's temporary. But we have to, we can't put those kids on, I mean, they're already in the bus for an hour and a half. They're already leaving at 6 AM, you know that.
Yeah.
They're already getting home at 4,
I know.
what,
you know, it's a long day.
no, what time, Kelly, do the buses typically end their routes? I know it's not all gonna be the same,
The
but,
elementary one,
yeah.
so they're gonna be a little bit later, they're 10 minutes later than they were last year.
So, I mean, is it safe to say
Anywhere from-
the buses that are going, say, South Road and Middle, which is probably the closest to
So,
Concord?
Yeah, Blue, there's always one, first one's done,
3:30, 4.
probably 3:30 or more closer to 3:30 this year.
Okay, so,
So it could be up at Concord,
By
if it
4:15.
continued, it could go up to Concord, if
Yes.
the driver is available and interested in doing that.
Yes, it's, so, if anybody's not familiar, so, like you said, that high school bus shuttles the after-school program kids over and then goes to meet the other bus.
Mhm.
That takes care of that whole side of town. The blue bus, let's say, or maybe even orange if we change the afternoon delivery system, the way we go, could also be there. One of them could meet that bus and take the rest. It would be the other side of town, the Route 107, the Coffeetown area that we would have coverage for.
I mean, we can, as far as like on the high school side, the struggle that I'm seeing is not necessarily getting the kids from Concord to Deerfield. I'm sure we can figure out a solution for that. It's getting them to a bunch of specific places in town. So, I mean, if we could send an elementary bus to Concord, we could have them, and this is 20 years ago when I was in high school, we're more than that now, but
No, we could, what she's saying is that if that bus ends, and we're already down a bus and still in our DCS routes.
right.
So if that bus ends and goes up there, there'll be a 4:15 pickup,
Yeah,
which is, school gets out at 2:30, 2:40 up there.
which, as much as I hate to, I mean, when I was in high school in Central and Manchester, the Deerfield elementary buses were the buses that went to Manchester, and they went before their runs. So I got on a bus at 5:30 in the morning, we were at Central High School at 6:15, and it picked us up at probably about 4:30, 4-ish, and we got off the bus at, 4:30, and it stopped in, I don't know how long you've been with.
Places, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was the corner of South Road, and if you lived down South Road, you got out and you started trotting, and I think it was the George B. White, and
Where would they let you stay? Like if you got there so early in the morning, like where
you
would
had
they
plenty of time to do your homework in the
They would allow
cafeteria
you to go into the school.
at Central High School.
Concord is open.
Yeah,
Savannah?
I know years ago when I went to Concord High, there was only certain drop-offs in town, George B. White down at the Route 43, 107.
Yep.
And the kids would, they'd either walk home or they'd get picked up. And I know one of the concerns back then was, in wintertime, when it's dark out in the morning and they're walking to the bus, and we don't have sidewalks in Deerfield, they're having to walk pretty much down the road where, it's a safety issue at that point. So one of my big concerns is if we don't do smaller drop-offs or, something that's gonna work like that, we're gonna be back in that same boat where we're putting the kids in now a safety issue.
Right. Yeah, that is a very valid point. So I am hoping that Concord comes through and has available buses, or we have some sort of a later bus. None of these are good solutions, but they are solutions. it's hopefully not gonna be something that lasts long. It's a challenge that we gotta get through, and hopefully Dale winds up hiring enough people that they can have the buses leave on time. No decisions have been made at this board level because things change on a daily basis. But we want to hear from the community about what obviously your concerns are. And I know the high school bus is long. My kid's on it. That's the situation we're in right now. There are not free buses. Sure.
On that note, when is our contract up with Concord?
2 more with Concord? 4 years.
4 years?
Yes.
Are there talks with Co-Brown, possibly going to Co-Brown for high school?
This board has a subcommittee that is talking about all different options, and we've heard from community members about a lot of different things, and we're having meetings with people. We are 4 years away from the end of our contract with Concord, so right now we're in the preliminary stages in terms of discussing what's going to happen.
And as a clarification, an exit from a contract with Concord, if it was to be done ahead of the current termination, still takes 2 years.
We can't just leave.
It's not an
I'm
overnight
not saying
thing.
just leave, I'm just saying, in 4 years from now,
And they're-
Co-Brown is so close.
Co-Brown is over $4,000 more than Concord per kid. So you got to go to the community and ask them if they're interested in we're going to put some ballot questions out.
So when are we expecting a decision about all this?
We are going to have
I might have missed it, but-
we're going to have another meeting. So we're going to digest all this, and we're going to have another meeting. I think we actually should have another meeting pretty darn soon.
We have another one.
We have a
21st.
meeting in 2 weeks, but
We need to
we
deal
may
with this
suggest
before
another
then.
meeting before that.
And you'll be communicating on Facebook again? Or
That was really productive. We may go to one call now to all parents. One way or the other, we will communicate and let everybody know where we're thinking and what's going on.
Before you make the actual final decision, or are we just gonna hear your final decision?
Come to the next meeting. When we publish the meetings, the only time we can actually make decisions are when we're all sitting at this table. Nothing can happen in between in terms of actually making a decision. We can gather all the information and come to this type of meeting where we can talk about, maybe Concord might have the possibility of helping us with a late bus, or maybe some of our drivers might be able to go up afterwards. It has to happen at one of these meetings. So we will, I'm going to actually suggest that we probably have another meeting to just deal with this in
I mean,
addition.
clearly, you know I'm only interested in high school.
I know what you're interested in.
Clearly.
At least you're honest, Kelly.
Yes.
The two others back here are more or less just.
I have a question about that too.
Sure.
Is Yale reimbursing the school
Yes,
for transportation costs?
Yes.
Where is that money going towards?
it will go towards hopefully getting a different
wait.
bus or.
Jen,
Sure.
Dale's not billing us for the
They're not billing
transportation
us.
we're not using.
Right.
So they're not reimbursing us, they're not billing us for the transportation that we're not
But
receiving.
there's gonna be, because right now, we're paying them $193,000 for high school transportation.
Yep.
According to the budget.
Yes,
And they're gonna give us 1/3 of that with one bus.
so they will bill us for the appropriate number of buses they
Okay.
provide.
Okay.
Is there any way that we could reach out to our local representatives and see if they could get some kind of emergency override that would allow us to use something other than a sanctioned school bus?
There was a committee, I think actually Kevin Ferville was working on this, and I think it's dead this year is what I saw. There was a committee, because last year Northwood had a much worse situation than we do now. They had 0 buses. And at the state level, there was a study group and committee that was put together with the Department of Transportation and the Department of Education, who don't necessarily talk to each other a lot about busing. And it kind of stalled out because there hadn't been another pressure point. Northwood figured out their busing situation. Dale actually does Northwood now. And the pressure seemed to reduce, so there was no movement at the state level to make any changes. So, sorry. But yeah, call people, yell at them, go ahead. Are there any other questions? Have we not explained anything at this point?
What about in the morning, like, we're talking about early drop off, what if there was like a paid parent, I'm gonna pay you such amount of money in the morning, or, even a volunteer, they can, like, I don't know what's the ratio, 25-1 or whatever, that they can watch the kids in the morning, so that way the teachers are not responsible or paraprofessional from the schools.
Yeah, I mean, we have an after-school program already set up that has a system that could, there's no reason that it couldn't be morning rather than afternoon in terms of if you know somebody who wants to do it, I'm sure that the administration would love to hear from you. Yeah, go ahead.
The one holdup with that is fingerprinting. It's really busy right now because school's getting ready to start. So if we did that, we need to get somebody in to get fingerprinted right away because it's a couple weeks at least.
So if you were fingerprinted for one of the kids' trips and you volunteered every year, you're still good.
Yep.
So you wouldn't need to be fingerprinted again.
If they're wondering, I have a list, so.
Okay, she's the lady to talk to. Savannah, yes.
So just to clarify, there is an after-school program here as well as
There's an after-school enrichment program here where we run, it's not on a regular basis. It's more like, there's going to be a robotics club, and there's going to be a Lego club, and there's going to be an ecology camp for a set amount of time.
Well, I guess my concern is if there's gonna be an earlier pickup in the morning for certain an earlier drop off in the morning for them to drop off kids. For those that may be working, past 3 o'clock or something, is there gonna be some kind of program here if they're not taking the bus home as well?
That program is currently provided by the Parks and Rec Department.
Which are full.
Yeah, which that's entirely separate from the school.
But there's nothing that could be done here as far as another program for those that have to pick up, that can't take the bus home?
At this point, we don't have the space for it. They've come to us a couple of times, and based on the number of sports that are accommodated and events that are accommodated after school, the athletic director looked at that really thoroughly last year, and it was not.
We have to displace other programs.
We have a space problem in the building too, which we've been talking about. So, yes, Kelly.
So who pays for the bus that goes to Parks and Recs from here?
We do.
Why wouldn't Parks and Recs pay for that bus themselves out of their budget?
There's no extra cost for it. It's just one of our buses
We're
that we pay for.
We're utilizing one of our buses, and the kids that we're bringing to Parks and Rec, if we weren't bringing them to Parks and Rec, we would be bringing them home. So it kind of helps us a little bit because it's a quick turn, and then we're able to utilize that bus for the high school kids. It saved us from actually having to add an 8th elementary bus a couple of years ago. So it saved us about $70,000 in the long run. With 60, whatever the annual number for bus. 70 is what's in my head. It might be a little less.
58.
60-ish.
60? Sorry.
Around there, I think.
Whatever an annual cost is for a bus.
Any other questions? Emily?
Have you gotten much feedback from people about receptivity to consolidating bus stops? I know my bus stop is 15 feet from, I'm one of those people who goes to front door pickup, which is a little bit ridiculous. Nice for me, ridiculous though. Right. Not needed, so consolidating bus stops is something that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll consider consolidating bus stops. It would have to be, look at the number of kids, the safety of the stop, because your kid is going to be walking from point A to point B to get to the stop.
Is there a general policy that Dale has in regards to that, Kelly?
Basically, obviously, it makes it much more efficient if you're not, but, like you said, it depends on the area. We follow your policy. Other than needing to see an adult for younger students, obviously, and that the adult could go to wherever the assigned stop is. We don't need to stop at every house. Some depend on where they're located, where they might decide, they're going up the hill or down the hill, what have you, that type of thing.
Right.
Obviously, that makes it a lot more efficient. You're not stopping as often. Stop the bus, wait for them to get on, get in their seat, sit down, and then go away.
It's definitely a way of speeding things up. It all definitely would make some people mad.
Well, answer
Everybody's gonna be mad anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
That's the good news from this. Nobody will be happy when
No
we're
one
done.
is good. Any other questions?
I just wanna confirm.
Sure.
The morning buses to the high school are good, it's the nighttime buses
There are
that
2
not.
out of 3 going in the morning, so we are short a morning bus too, so they're gonna have to be extra long at this point. In the afternoon, we have 1 coming back out of 3.
Kelly, have you plotted a 2 morning bus pickup high school routing yet? Have you looked at that at all?
I haven't, but we certainly can.
So we are not in good shape with the high school.
At all,
No,
morning or afternoon.
no, not particularly, no. Yes,
How would that get figured out if we don't get anything from Concord and we only have that one bus? How do we figure out the kids getting one?
we talk about having a late bus, a later pickup, and the kids would have to hang out or do sport or do a club or just
Homework.
do homework and wait. Which is maybe not ideal for every kid, but it would give them a ride. Yes?
I'm a little new to the whole busing thing, but my child would be at the end of the road, down the middle road, South Road intersection, going to school. So in the case of having only a couple buses, what would be the scenario if he goes to get on the bus and it's full? Does he get turned away from the bus?
We never turn a kid, is it K through 8,
No, it's high school.
high school?
Yeah.
We're really not intent on turning anybody away. My goal is to never wind up with a kid not able to get to school. Obviously, this is a big challenge, and we're trying to talk to a lot of different people in terms of getting additional resources, but we really don't want to see that happen. I'm gonna say, please no. Yes?
When do you think we'll get an estimate as to the time for pickup of kids on the high school level so that we can figure out what other accommodations we need to make?
After our next meeting. I think we have to get a little bit closer, see if Kelly can get another driver, in which case we're gonna be going with a very similar schedule to what we had last year, if we have 3 in the morning.
But you said it takes 3 months to get somebody up and running.
Yeah, but you can hire somebody away from somewhere else. So Dale, as a private company, is constantly recruiting people and trying to, they work, she's probably over in the first student parking lot trying to grab drivers, I hope, for my sake. But hopefully after the next meeting, we will have to solidify.
And you said that's August 21st for next?
No, I think that.
That's what's on the schedule.
That's what's on the
We'll
schedule,
have
but
a-
I think we're gonna have another meeting, because this needs to be addressed before that. Yes?
I have a quick question for Dale. As far as the numbers for Concord High, is 2 buses in the morning getting there, is that doable, or would we actually need a third?
In the morning, it's probably doable.
Okay.
In the afternoon, at the end of the school year last year, we had 20 or less on each of those 3 buses. The bus that did Mr. Mike's side of town had maybe 10.
So we could do, if we had somebody just covering that second half coming home, we could do 2 there and 2 back and be okay?
Well,
There's a
we have to
big
count
freshman
this-
class coming in.
Right. Oh.
There's a big freshman class. So it's gonna all change.
You don't know if the whole bus of the room, right?
I haven't had that with the freshman, but not knowing who's gonna ride.
Right.
Yes.
I think it is going to be valuable for the school to reach out and really get a sense of who needs the bus. Because we obviously have to accommodate for everybody on the K through 8 level, but on the high school level, maybe we can put out a survey and say, are you gonna be on bus? Because we really need to know.
Can we hit is it possible, we have obviously the 8th grade class list from last year, can we one call just the 8th grade?
Yeah, we're gonna be
And
reaching out to everybody.
We can't one
But
call,
Concord
but
can.
Concord can.
So Concord will reach out to you and ask about busing.
Okay.
We will ask Concord to do it.
Technically, Concord.
So that way you'll have absolute
DCS
numbers.
If everybody replies, yeah, so call everybody in the grade and say, when you get this survey, you better reply, because we need to know.
Can it
But
just
if
be?
you're not part of DCS, if you were not part of this district.
If you've registered at Concord, they'll have your information.
That falls into that gray area of the Concord students at that point, so.
Yep.
Yeah. Sure.
Can it be a temporary survey?
Like I'm willing to do this up until, but I don't wanna say I'm gonna be the one that drives, and then when I do need it later on, like I'll schedule it so that I will be able to do it, but I would like to eventually be able to throw my kids on the bus because I have.
So put a comment section in there, like, I'm doing this unwillingly?
No, it's not unwillingly, I'll do it to help, you know? In fact, I'll offer on my own, not through the school, to bring other kids to and from. I don't mind doing that, but I don't want it to be, it's set in stone, Andrea's kids can never get on the bus because she said they won't do it.
Nobody wants to stop.
Right.
I mean, that's how it used to be. Before we actually put buses in the budget, parents had to pay out of their own pocket and you had to register, and there was only X amount of seats. So a lot of times, like, there was a year where my kid didn't get a seat on the bus because he forgot to pull the paper out of his backpack when he got home. So that at that point, that's when, you know, we made the spreadsheet and said, and there were probably 4 or 5 kids that didn't have the means to pay to get on the bus. So
You're paying tuition for a bus, basically.
that's exactly what we were, was $75.
Were you $75 a quarter at that time?
Yes.
Because
because the law in New Hampshire says that you're not required to pay for high school transportation. So at that
point, the school board did not provide transportation.
Right.
Any other questions? It's gonna be an ongoing conversation. It's a far friendlier conversation than Facebook, thank you. We'll keep people updated, we'll do it through our website, and we'll post as need be, but I think we need another transportation meeting next week. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
So we'll probably have another meeting next week, at which point we will try to firm this up so everybody knows what's coming.
So should we make some requests, I guess, from Dale to hopefully bring back to us for some options?
Yeah.
Unreasonable?
I know there's conversations going on between you or the corporate office and the SAU. Is there a chance that they may bring drivers up from somewhere else, or?
Right now, there aren't any available to bring.
Okay.
They were trying to get some out of Connecticut, they're not available to us right now. If they are, they'll be ours. In that case, what happens is we put them up in a hotel and pay for the meals and whatever it takes to get it done.
I love that idea.
And we do it, because we got it. So if they're available, we will go there. A moment they're not. And we have to go through the training, like I said, to get the school certificate.
And we are also reaching out and continuing conversations and asking everybody who has a bus nicely to play with us. So maybe somebody will come through. At this point, nobody has committed.
I think it would be helpful to have all the possible solutions ready for that meeting so that you could make an informed decision. So, you know, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. Pick one.
Emily.
Just in terms of having all the options on the table, I know somebody, desire on buses, that would be helpful to just have a figure on hand. So
Holy mackerel.
so that people understand what that means.
How much does a bus cost? 200,000?
Right now,
So,
that?
so we would need $2 million worth of buses, the ability to maintain them, fuel them, staff them, and insure them.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Find drivers.
And we still have to find, and we still wouldn't have drivers.
so that is not something we were considering.
So the information is educational for people to understand that.
Right.
We do not want to be in the private transportation business. There is no economy of scale for us to be in it. It would be a horrific.
But if someone's asking the question, that would be great to provide the answer.
Great. More, yes, Savannah.
I mean, I prefer my kids stay at Concord High, but if worst case scenario, we can't get any buses or, enough buses to transport the kids up there. I mean, I know 45 minutes is a lot longer than somebody that might have to go to Raymond or something. Is there the option for students to go to other schools and have that tuition paid if they cannot get transportation to Concord?
We have a contractual obligation that we have to give 2 years' notice before students change. So no. Yes.
And you were talking about that $4,000 figure. I mean, if we're having so much trouble with busing now, and if there is a shortage of bus drivers, wouldn't it be feasible to maybe explore other options that are schools that are closer, that require less of a distance in traveling and time on a bus? That, in the next couple of years, we can revisit for a different contract.
Yeah, it's something that the board is open to hearing from everybody. Yes. Anything else? All right, I think we've talked transportation. You're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, which is just fascinating, but I understand. All right. Board report.
Jim,
What's that?
Zach's asking if you wanted to ask Kelly for ideas now, or do you want to wait?
Do you have ideas now, or?
I'm Google for you. Google what we have to do. So, document ready left, right, like you said, one idea in the afternoon. We send, it doesn't even have to be in the budget, but we get documents available to go in and pick up students.
A late run
Later
after
on,
they're
yeah.
done.
I mean, you could send a bus from Pembroke theoretically, that's that much closer.
Yeah, somebody because they finish earlier, that was interesting going to do that. They all work for us. So
Yeah.
decided, we can ask them to go the second day, that would work too. So it may not be as late.
Is it possible for our next meeting for you to have, based upon whatever your newfound information is over the course of the next week, and maybe the situation improves and the conversation in the next meeting is like, yeah, it's not gonna be as bad as we thought.
It's already not as bad.
It's less bad than it was. Right, it's improved, so, but is it possible for you to come to us with, based on what we have today, which is 2 here and 6 here, this is how we have to do it? So that because we have to approve routes and we need to start, so is that something we can have for the next week?
I think we go next Wednesday. Everybody okay? So next Wednesday, 6 o'clock.
Does that work for you? Because you're gonna be like the star of the show.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure at all. Big slides.
So Wednesday, is that the 14th?
Yeah, I put that on my calendar.
Okay.
Just transportation on the agenda?
Just transportation.
Okay, get that done.
Yay. You're not gonna talk, you have nothing for PTO?
Oh, no, today, yes, I'm not coming to the next week. Trust you guys, and good luck.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
sure. Last
Because I
question.
know you guys tabled the first thing, because my stupid whale watch went late and I wasn't here. Can it be untabled so that we have a chance to discuss it before the kids go back to school?
We said we were gonna move it to the second meeting in August, so it
2
will
weeks.
happen in 2 weeks. It'll happen before they go back to school.
I don't know, I don't think that that's enough time for anything to be able to be done before the kids go back to school.
Okay. PTO report.
I have a few things. I want to know if it's okay with the school, if we can borrow Matt's tables, cross-country pop-up, and coolers, our coolers, for the triathlon. I'll return it in the same thing.
Is everybody okay with that?
Did you just ask to borrow the PTO's coolers for the PTO sponsored thing?
Well, it was just on my list. Things I have to get from the school, so I wanna know if I can use those for the triathlon.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
No, it's cross-country. You bought cross-country. But I'll ask Cindy about that. The family that won the Name the Road competition would like to name it Shakedown Street.
Does the board have a problem with that?
No.
Anyone? No?
And the triathlon is the 17th. It's the same day that I'm hosting a wedding at my house. So all the road signs and that stuff, may I leave them at the school to get them off the town property just for the rest of that weekend? And then hopefully, maybe I can put in the.
Why are you asking us that?
Of course you can.
Because it's all those street signs, no?
Is everybody okay with that? Yeah,
Whatever you need to do for the triathlon
You
is
have to leave
fine.
signs for a day, that's fine.
Well, it's the rest of the weekend.
Yep.
And then you guys have another meeting before the back to school barbecue. Do you want to make those plans now or save that for the next meeting?
Now, like,
If we could.
you wanna do it now?
I'm shopping.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, we will make,
I can get you the list now.
I have last year's list in my pocketbook for when I go to Sam's Club on a regular basis.
Are all of you gonna be able to go?
What day are we doing it?
Monday the 26th.
at this point, yes,
At 3
I can go.
But it starts at 4, but you want.
So Gigi, I don't know if you've been to this.
Right, I want you
We
guys-
have a school board back to school barbecue where
I already took that day off.
the school board cooks burgers and dogs for everybody.
You will smell like a cheeseburger for a week.
Great.
It's an awesome.
Your cholesterol just skyrockets without even eating anything. It's awesome. Yes, so that.
What time does that start?
3, and it runs till like 6.
Setup is at 3.
Yeah.
Setup is at 3, start cooking at 4.
All right.
And the teachers.
We'll survive if you can. It's okay.
You can't make it till.
No, I might be, I'll be in
That's okay.
Summersworth, but.
That's okay.
We got it.
Get here when you can.
Can someone, because I don't know who to ask the Parks and Recs if we may borrow their grill again for it, so we have the 2 giant grills.
Could somebody, Kristen, could you do that?
Got you.
Okay. And at the next meeting, I will give you guys your list of what different, like last time Patty brought ice and stuff like that.
Anything you need.
Propane tanks and that stuff. Does anyone have them? And then I'll assign it now. Nate brought them the last time, so.
Yeah, I've got plenty of
I
them.
do, I have one I can bring.
That grill from Parks and Rec will need something to set on because it does not have any legs.
Should we invest in a second grill if we're doing this every year? Because they weren't that much money, if I recall.
Do we have room to store it?
Real shortly. Do you recall how much that grill was?
$300. That's not much.
It seems to me like if we're gonna do this every single year, and should we just get another one of those grills and have it?
It would make life a lot easier.
It would.
You can take one. So somebody make a motion.
I move that we get another grill, please.
Second. Any discussion on getting a second grill for the barbecue? You can use one of our stipends, that's fine.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Trish, can you get a grill?
That's that's 4 tanks we'll need then for that, and I don't remember, did you guys run out of propane last year?
I think,
Yeah, didn't you have to run and get some?
no, we didn't have tanks. I went and
Right.
bought 2 brand new tanks. That's why I have an abundance now at my house. I have surplus tanks.
We use them the next day for teachers, we use them leftovers.
We should, in all fairness, why don't we get a couple, we should just get a couple tanks at the same time. Or is there,
Want to store propane though?
we have a
Are
wonderful
there
place to store it.
rules? Oh, okay.
We can put it in there.
Are there rules against, I don't know.
They'll be basically empty anyway.
No.
Huh?
You're right, they will.
They'll be empty.
Cheryl's she shed burned down, we don't want our she shed.
Yeah, I didn't. How about we just,
I'll provide tanks. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's
I
fine.
have a spare too, I can
Yeah.
bring one.
We'll have plenty of propane, I have that big cooler and then I'll bring.
Yep, coolers, we need ice, and I'll have all that all set up, and I'll just hand you guys what you need to bring, it won't be much.
Thank you.
Just grill, or do you want another tool set too? I mean, seriously, it was.
anything else, Andrea?